I hope you packed a sack lunch because this is the kind of update news that this channel was made for. Just an excuse for me to talk for 40 minutes or more. I don't know. However long it says down there. You know, because I don't. Because I'm recording this now, and right now I've only been talking for 20 seconds. Item and enchantment changes for 26.0. The Amulet of Taylor Swiftness is upon us, and I love it. As a person who loves Gadget, and I've always loved Gadget, and it's very sad to me that Gadget has not gotten any better, other than the damage on activation. So if you don't know and you're late to the party, Gadget used to be, it used to do the anvil damage once you completely filled the board with the tiles, which obviously took forever, and then you would finally be able to get a damage thing with the stun. Or the slow. It's not a stun. That would be crazy. But the damage and the slow. Now they added it to where on activation from the get-go you get the anvils. So it does something. I will say that it has helped me in a first round when I get screwed over, and then you have the anvil activation. You can just clear the first round and get mana and then recover. But the reason why that Gadget doesn't really do anything anymore, is that they have made, so Gadget's entire thing was that it made tiles. When you try to compare it to like a trainer or a bestie, Gadget specifically has tiles, and it gave tiles to the board. Originally, Zeus didn't have 4 tiles, it just had all the other abilities, and then they decided it's a legendary hero, let's give it 4 tiles, and then on those tiles you level up your cards. And then they were like, that's actually a really cool mechanic, let's give Necromancer tiles, let's give J tiles, you get a tile, you get a tile. And Gadget's tiles became less cool, because it doesn't do anything other than give you damage, crit chance, and attack speed, which sounds like a lot, but you get better attack speed with a J tile, technically, because you are guaranteed 4 J tiles. So if you're looking for attack speed with your Inquisitor, you're not going to run Gadget, you're just going to run J, because you can set up an Inquisitor and know that it is a 40% boost, as opposed to getting a level 20 Gadget and getting a gold tile and then it being a 40% boost, even though you would also be getting attack speed and crit chance, or I'm sorry, damage and crit chance. It's better to have the 4 definitive tiles than to have tiles just kind of randomly. And that's why the 4-tile deck building system started. And that's why Gadget, nobody cares about, because nobody builds full fields of units. If you haven't noticed, decks that don't need to build full fields of units don't. You don't see like 12 Spirit Masters on the board. You don't see 9 Teslas on the board. It's 4 units and you're done. 4 Bruisers, 4 Teslas, 4 Spirit Masters, and if you are running any more than that off of your growth tiles, then it's just subpar, because then the spread of your scrapper hits will be so thin that yes, you may have 5 Blade Dancers, 6 Blade Dancers, but they're all level 3, or one is a level 7 and one's a level 1, at which point the thing to do was to just build 4 units. This patch and the changes to the items, it's going to change all of that. I don't know what decks are going to look like after this, but this is going to change a lot. The Amulet of Swiftness creates points on the player's field, merging, absorbing units, or increasing their merge rank at those points. Increase damage dealt by all units, as in all units on the field, as in Gadget, by 0.5%. Points move when damage increases or at the end of a wave, which is also good. So you get 4 tiles on the board, and when you merge, absorb, or increase merge rank, that's huge. Usually it's like on a growth tile, for example, you had to combine, you had to merge onto the thing. Absorbing units or increasing their merge rank. I believe absorbing units is like if you scrapper a unit on that tile, increasing their merge rank if you dryad them. This percentage boost for your entire field is going to be better. 0.5% is not a lot, but the fact that it also moves when damage increases or at the end of a wave is also huge. That means that if you are running Monk Equilibrium, you can, and you upgrade a spot, right? If you upgrade if one of the tiled units upgrades, that counts as an upgrade, and then it'll change spots, at which point you can, it's easier to manage when it changes spots. And I think Saz pointed it out that he wishes Magic Circle on the Witch ability did that. For those of you that don't know, the level 13 Witch ability is a Magic Circle where if you merge onto that tile, you gain mana. And it'll then move to another tile on the board. But if it lands on a tile that is one of your main damage dealers, you're obviously not going to merge on that tile, and then it just stays on that tile forever, meaning there's no reason to use it. If it had the ability to do this, which is move at the end of a wave, then you could continue using it theoretically. If you're thinking about Sea Dog kind of has the same problem, where if it lands on a captain that you don't want to merge out, then it's stuck there. But the mana ability moves that tile. It allows you to build like a Blade Dancer deck, for example, and when you have spots that you want to upgrade or scrapper, you can scrap a unit, and then if one of the tiles you can't do anything with, you can wait the wave, and then it'll change, and then you can continue going. If you have an Amulet of Swiftness and a gadget, I'm pretty sure this is going to make Floral Frenzy Blade Dancer so much better. Being able to buff your entire field, even if it's by 0.5%, having that extra damage boost where currently an Amulet of Growth, if your Blade Dancers don't land, if your Amulet of Growth tiles don't land on the positions that you want them to, you're just straight up not using it. With this, it's buffing your entire field. Units that, or decks that would use a large quantity of the field to build on, this is going to benefit a lot. And with the change to Amulet of Growth that we'll obviously talk about, I think this is going to be the new best thing. That's my own prediction. I think Magic Amulet just got a little bit better because the nerf to Amulet of Growth is kind of crazy. But we'll get to that. Changes to the armor and the Amulet of Weakness. So this is anything that affects your opponent. And that's why they bring up Amulet of Weakness, but obviously all of the armor. Hunter's Jacket, Chainmail, Knight's Armor, Mage Robe are all going to be affected by this change. So a lot of people are confused about this, and the wording is kind of strange, but it does make sense. Currently, the way that armor and Amulet of Weakness works is it's based on your... it's based on the opponent. I have my Hunter's Jacket set to Force Alliance, Kingdom of Light, and Magic Council. The way that this works is they get a 13% attack speed debuff for Alliance of All Kingdoms, so just generically. But if they have a Force Alliance or a Kingdom of Light or a Magic Council, they gain an additional 13% decrease in attack speed. This is there's no way to specify this, meaning that if I go up against a Magic Council, like a genie person, right, is paired against me, they all of a sudden have a very big debuff for no controllable reason. It's just I happen to have Hunter's Jacket with Magic Council. They happen to be running a Magic Council deck, and it just happens to affect them. Whereas if I didn't, and I had like Technogenic, Dark, and Forest faction, then I wouldn't be affecting them. And that's kind of how it works. You have no control over who you're picked against, right? And so you could start a match with just a huge debuff, and you had no control over that. They just happened to pair you with somebody who happened to have a Hunter's Jacket that just happened to be set to whatever your thing is. In the current update, in this next 26.0 update, they're changing that system for anything that affects your opponent. And the way that they're changing it is that you have to have these units in your deck in order for you to gain the benefit. So the numbers are going to be changed, obviously, but for the sake of argument, let's say maximum is 15%. You get a 5% for each faction that you currently have in your deck. So instead of saying they have a Forest Alliance deck, they're getting 13% debuff. Instead, because I'm running a deck, what deck is this in? This is my Spirit Master deck. So because I'm running a deck with, so I have this set to Forest Alliance, Kingdom of Light, and Magic Council. My units are Forest of Light, Forest faction, Magic Council. I don't think I have a Kingdom of Light in here. No? No. Because Trapper is Forest faction, and then Dark Domain, this is Technogenic. So I have a Forest and a Magic Council. So my Hunter's Jacket that I have set to Forest and Magic Council, I would get 2 parts of that benefit. So if that number is 5%, I would get a 10% boost, or a 10% debuff on my Hunter's Jacket. If I were to also put a Magic Council unit in my deck, then it would be the full benefit. I think this is a good change, because then if you really want to debuff your opponent, you really have to try. And it's going to make it so that if you want to do it, you can, but it's not determined based on luck anymore. It's because of how you built your deck, and it's because of how you re-rolled this. And I think it's a good change. I think it makes it much more interesting that if you really want to debuff your opponent, then you really have to try. Because with these, you're having to try. If you want a Forest faction, or if you want a Technogenic, if you roll a Spear with Technogenic, Forest faction, Dark, and Dark, if you have, you know what? I could actually see them doing it to base level things now. Now that is a thing, I could see them doing it to this. And that would be something. Like if they split this percentage boost between like whether or not you had all of the factions in your deck, I could see them doing it, and that's a very scary thought. Because I think for the most part, nobody really cares about like things that affect your opponent. You just really care about the things that affect you. I don't think Hunter's Jacket and Mage Robe were ever really overpowered, except for when Mage Robe was obviously overpowered, and now that they've neutralized it, I don't feel the difference anymore. I don't ever feel that I'm getting Hunter's Jacket. I don't ever feel that I'm getting Mage Robed. It's just kind of there as like a slight debuff. I could totally see them doing it to all the items. Like splitting this percentage to whether or not you had each of the factions in your deck. That would open up some really weird re-rolling and like caring about factions. Because with like legendary card or with legendary equipment, you only care about your faction. Like this is a Spirit Master deck. I only care that it has Forest faction. I don't care that it like the fact that it has Dark and Techno is just a bonus. But what if they changed this 23% and they divided it amongst the 3, I could totally see them doing that. And that's a very scary thought. Anyway, they didn't do that. And that is how it currently works on things that affect your opponent. I'm going to go back. Buffing legendary amulets. Legendary amulets are now guaranteed to receive a point in one of the field's 3 central tiles. This is obviously there for cultist decks. Sometimes you would run a cultist deck and all of your tiles are going to be in the corners. And you don't use them. And then your deck just has no benefit running any kind of amulet. Or sometimes. And so now, in one of the 3 center tiles, there will be a one of the 4 your 4 amulets. Obviously, with the Swift amulet, it's just going to keep changing, so that one doesn't matter. But the other 3 are static tiles that just stay in the same place, and one of them will now always be in the center. So I think that's good. Balance changes for the Magic Amulet. The starting bonus is now 5 to 6%. Increase per level goes from 0.5 to 0.6. And then the bow increases 0.6 to 0.7. I think that the Magic Amulet might become better, being a static thing. And the Amulet of Growth change. We're really going to have to figure out the percentages on the difference between a max Magic Amulet and a max Amulet of Growth. But the way that they're changing Amulet of Growth is very simple. At the end of each round, the damage dealt by units now decreases by 2%. I love that they had to put in the caveat, damage bonus cannot fall below 0%. So you're not going to start healing things if you don't merge on a growth tile. But essentially what this means is if you don't keep using the growth tile, every round, it's going to decrease 2%, which means you can use, if you have a legendary amulet and you have the 4 tiles, right? If all 4 tiles are in a good spot and you want to use all of them, too bad. You can't use all of them. Because if you do use all of them, eventually your percentage boost will go back down to 0. So, assuming that your thing is at 50%, right? And you get 50%, and you've been merging on that growth tile for like the entire game, right? Originally, you could just stop merging on that tile, put a thing on that tile, and then you're off. And then level up that thing. You can use all 4 tiles for the rest of the game. You're done. Now, if you decide to put a thing on there, another unit, your last attacking unit on there, and you decide to not keep combining and upgrading onto that tile, your 50% next round is going to be 48%, and then 46%, and then 44%, and then 42%. Which means that you can now, with Amulet of Growth, only use 3 tiles. That means that even if you got perfect spots, you're not going to be able to use all 3, or all 4. You're only ever going to be able to use 3. Which makes Amulet of Growth even worse as it goes down to lower and lower rankings. I originally said I wouldn't even use an Amulet of Growth until I got an Epic Amulet. Now I think you don't even use it until you get a Legendary. Because losing out on a tile is pretty big. And you could argue that sometimes you never used all 4 to begin with, but this also forces you to constantly, at the very least, upkeep 1 merge onto your Amulet of Growth tile. So when you're trying to split your attention between doing Night Statue stacks and Amulet of Growth stacks, that's an extra merge that you're going to have to keep merging every single time. That's more scrappers that you have to summon in. That's more summon-ins that you have to do to continue gaining the same benefit on 3 tiles. This is going to change a lot of decks, I think. Being able to only run 3 as opposed to 4 attacking units is a very big minus. It's a very interesting change. I'm excited to see how people deck build now, because this is going to change things. In the same way that when they started to add four tiles to a lot of heroes, minusing the most used amulet and minusing a tile from it is going to change a lot of deck building. I don't think you can just survive on 3 attacking units, or maybe people will now try and just survive on 3 attacking units, or have a 4th unit that is not on a tile, and then they'll just run it like that. It's just going to be a lot more mana intensive, and I want to see if people actively try to switch to Magic Amulet just because it's easier, or if the percentage boost that you're gaining from the Amulet of Growth is just better, so you just use this instead, or if people change to the Swift Amulet. I don't know. I don't think people will change to the Swift Amulet. I think people will still either use this or the Magic Amulet. Pocket Exhaustion, a thing that nobody used. But they're now changing the effect. So originally it used to give 2 tiles to the opponent, and now it's going to. It now hits a tile with a projectile that applies the negative effect, reducing attack speed for 15 seconds. I think the biggest reason why they didn't want to give your opponent even more tiles with Pocket Exhaustion is because there are so many tiles on the board currently, between like an Amulet of Growth, or any of the amulets really, amulets, between, like Witch Curse tiles, the what's it called tile, the Sea Dog tile. There's just too many tiles to cycle out and to like differentiate. I think that Pocket Exhaustion just, basically Boreas, Sleep Arrow hitting 2 targets, it just reduces visual clutter. Not that a lot of people ran this, but that's interesting. That's an interesting change. New enchantments. There are 11. There are 11 new enchantments. If you're unaware, there's a large quantity of enchantments in this game. A lot of enchantments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There are 17 enchantments in this game, and we are now getting 11 more. It's almost doubling the amount of enchantments that we have, and we already have very low percentages to get these enchantments. Adding 11 more, your chances of re-rolling and getting something that you want is going to be even lower. But with that being said, 11 new enchantments. Border Guards. Faction units and corner tiles gain damage bonus. This is all Crystal Arcanus. If you have a Crystal Arcanus deck, the Crystal Arcanus deck that nobody runs, this is going to be really cool for that. Or if you want to use Border Guard for the Sentry, this is also going to be that. It's regular and rare, so there's presumably 2 different different bonuses, percentage bonuses for the 2. Vengeance. After a faction unit has had its rank reduced for any reason, another faction unit gains a temporary bonus to damage. We'll talk about that when we get to... Is it reverse? When we get to... or no. Isn't there a better version of that? I thought I read something that there was like a better version of that. I think reverse is the better version of that, but it's different. We'll get to that. Pocket exhaustion. When a boss is killed by a unit of the faction, 3 exhaustion projectiles are created as a vertical line on the other player's field. They temporarily reduce the attack speed of any enemy unit. Activates once per wave. Co-op increases attack speed. And then there's the epic version, which is 5 exhaustion projectiles are created as a horizontal line on the other player's field. Decreasing attack speed or increasing attack speed. So yeah, this is just an extension of pocket exhaustion. And getting 1 projectile, 3 projectiles, and 5 projectiles is crazy. I also think that there's regular, rare, epic, and legendary, and I don't remember. Was there? Oh, I guess there was regular, rare, epic, and legendary. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's basically the same. I for some reason, I thought there were only 3 rarities. But yeah, there's now a regular, rare, and an epic version. Foundling 3, killing a mini-boss with a unit of the faction has a chance of summoning a weakened vortex mini-boss to the other player's path. I've liked this mechanic as a person. I like Demonologist. I like the Hunter sending boars. I like Reaper sending ghosts. I like the mechanic personally as a, I'm a person that will play Diablo with a Necromancer because I like when when I can summon things and have those things do my work for me. In this game, this mechanic doesn't work as well as you would think because you are essentially just giving them more mana. It is very difficult to overwhelm your opponent with monsters that they can't already kill. Essentially what it becomes, and this is the reason why Demonologist is not a unit that anybody uses, essentially, what ends up happening is that it becomes what I like to refer to as a win more card. It's like if somebody said, use this gun to kill that person. And then you said, how about a bazooka? And it's like, yeah, you could do that too. But that at that point feels like overkill. Because with the gun, you could do the exact same thing. If they were going to die with monsters, with your overwhelming amount of monsters that they couldn't keep up with, like they couldn't keep up with the waves. If they can't keep up with the waves, then they were probably gonna die anyway, and now they're just gonna die earlier. Like, as opposed to dying 1 round before, or 1 round later, now they're dying 1 round before. But they were probably gonna die anyway. So I've never liked Foundling for this exact reason. I've never used Hunter, except for in low rankings, like arena play. The mechanic doesn't really work as well as you would think it would, because now you're just giving them more mana, because they will definitely kill all of the things that you're sending them. And so I don't think this works at all. Brotherhood has a epic version and a legendary version. If a faction unit receives a negative effect, the damage dealt by another unit of the same faction will be temporarily increased. The legendary version is actually pretty cool. If a faction unit receives a negative effect, the damage dealt by all units of that same faction will be temporarily increased. There are so many negative effects in this game. And so if you get enchant sorted, because that's the most common one, just getting red sorted. If you get red sorted and all of your units gain a damage boost, that's pretty crazy. It's kind of like a morally gray. It's in that area of your opponent has to do something to you in order for you to get a bonus. But if they do, you get a major bonus. I think that it's good. Again, though, it's not gonna replace Counterspell for me. Counterspell 2 is just too good. Being able to cure all of your things is probably better than dealing damage. Because you should be able to deal damage on your own. You don't need minimalistic boosts of damage. Does it help? Yeah. But especially because it's conditional, I don't like, like, if I need my opponent to enchant sword me in order to kill a wave or to kill a boss, you're probably gonna lose. Abundance is the only one that I would still recommend as like this is pretty good as a damage boost. But outside of those, in terms of conditional like damage boosts, if you need the conditional damage boost, you're probably gonna lose anyway. Astral, if a faction unit is about to lose merge rank, it has a chance to be stunned instead of losing it. I do like that. Losing a merge rank and being stunned instead, if a tribunal hits, I feel like that's pretty good. I think that that's very, very strong. Stronger than you might think. Losing merge rank on a Monkey King, losing merge rank on like a meteor hit, and being stunned instead, that's pretty big for endgame players. I could see this being used. I don't know if it's necessarily better than Counterspell, but I do like the mechanic. And I think that a lot of pro people will probably use this. Because if you don't already know, Tribunal is the only boss that eventually kills endgame decks. Like a Bard deck. Like a deck that's going 600 billion damage. The only thing that kills you eventually, and why Zeus is so good, are Tribunals. Eventually, you just can't deal that amount of damage instantly. You can deal it over, over the course of time, like, so that a Bedlam doesn't hit you, or so that a Warlock doesn't hit you. But because Tribunal, you have to insta-kill, sometimes you just can't insta-kill 3 billion damage, right? And then you get Tribunal, and half your units go down a rank. If you had the ability to not lose a rank, and just get stunned instead, I could see that becoming a thing. I don't know if it's great, because if you stun your unit, 1 second. Sorry about that. Talking for 32 minutes. I told you this is going to be long. Talking for 30 minutes, like it was drying out my throat. I don't know if stunning your units is necessarily a great thing. Like if a Tribunal hits and you don't lose any merge rank and all of your units get stunned, I guess it would assume you would have to know what the stun time is. If the stun time is short, then I could see it being like something that pro people use. But if the stun time is like 6 seconds and you just get bedlammed after you get tribunaled instead, that would be pretty bad and nobody would use it. The stun time is definitely going to matter on this. But I could see if it is a good stun time, if it's like a 1 second, 2 second stun time, I feel like people might use this. I like that it's a generic, any of your faction-based units. So a lot of the units that are on your field will probably get they all get like a theoretical shield, and I think that that's pretty cool. Foundling 4, I don't even want to talk about because again, summoning things onto their field is not going to win you games. Spell doubling, whenever a faction unit is absorbed or has its merge rank reduced, there was a small chance of summoning a unit on the first merge rank. I first thought that this was good. So like absorbed, I'm assuming again is like if you use a scrapper on something, and getting a scrapper, using a scrapper and scrappering a unit and then immediately getting a level 1 unit so that you can scrapper again. And then rolling that, over and over and over. It sounds good. I don't know if it's better than Counterspell, but it sounds cool. I really like it as a mechanic, but it's like if you have to choose between Counterspell 2, Counterspell 1, Abundance, this might be like my number 4 choice. I think that it's good. It sounds really good. it would depend on, again, it would depend on the percentages. Like, what is that chance? What is that small chance? Is small chance, are we talking 1%? Are we talking 15%? Are we talking 10%? That percentage chance is going to matter. Obviously, if you have triple of them, and, you know, like, you get that additive chance. But if you kept having the ability to continuously scrapper for free, I feel like that's pretty good. Or, you know, like, every so often for free, that feels really cool. I guess it would also depend on, it would be the faction units of your, of whatever equipment you had it on. So depending on the other things and how your deck is built, that would also matter, because it would only trigger on your the faction units that you have on your equipment. But it still sounds cool. I mean, like, in like on paper, it sounds cool. And then reverse. When an effect is applied that renders a unit inactive. So this means like a golem, probably a stun, or affects its or after its merge rank is reduced, and that's why I compared it to Vengeance. The effect unit temporarily gains a huge damage boost. The affected unit temporarily gains a huge damage boost. I feel like this would also have, it would have to do with how much time it lasts for, because it feels like if your opponent, or if your unit gets, I guess not golem, because it wouldn't matter, it would never get out of the golem. The affected unit temporarily gains a huge damage boost. If it's rendered inactive, like if it gets stunned, or if it gets, it can't be Petrify, and it can't be Golem, because then your unit will never recover during that wave. And it says temporarily gains a huge damage boost. There's a part of me that thinks this is just poorly worded, because, especially with it being legendary, that also feels strange. It feels like if it should be like all of the rest of your units. If one unit gets it is rendered inactive, like if one of your units gets golemed, the rest of your units gain a damage boost. Because I don't know when this would work. If you get stunned and it lasts for 5 seconds, and you get a temporarily damage boost for 5 seconds, then you don't have anything with the damage boost. I think this is just poorly worded. I think we're just gonna have to wait for in-game, like, to see if this is, like, how this actually works, because it sounds like it doesn't work. And then the new item is the hammer. Make no mistake, this is for endgame level players. This is to add variance to endgame level play. Essentially what this is a hammer that you will obtain through the Hero Tavern, which is already a endgame level thing to do. And it is a hammer to upgrade your heroic item so that the cooldown is reduced by 0.5%. Unlike the Laboratory of Experiments, when you use hammers to upgrade your heroic item, if it fails, you lose the hammer. Let me show you how useless this is if you are not an endgame player. If you are an endgame player, that means that you have that you play Heroes Tavern, or you collect all of the hero tokens for Hero Tavern. At which point, which I've made videos on, and how impossible it is to do that. It means that you have most of, if not all of the heroic items. If you have heroic items, the variance on heroic items when you get to this level, and you get champion medals, that's when you have the ability to upgrade your heroic items with heroic fragments, because when you get heroic items, they all have a level. That level goes to 20. And for people who have maxed out decks, if I go to worldwide and I just pick somebody here, somebody who has a level 20 Zeus, who has a level 12 heroic item, if you get to the point where you have a maxed out deck, a legendary equipment that's maxed out, a maxed out, everything, you have a level 20 Zeus, you have a level 20 glasses, and then you have and you play against somebody in a mirror match, then the person it's a very even fight. You finally have everything. You finally have everything that this game has to offer you, and there's no reason for you to continue trying to play this game. Unless you could reduce the cooldown on your level 20 Zeus by 0.5% utilizing hammers. That's who cares about this. That is the person who cares about this mechanic. So if that is not you, just completely disregard this, because that is so far endgame that it is laughable. But that is my review on all of this. I am so excited to get the Amulet of Taylor Swiftness. The Amulet of Taylor Swiftness is going to be amazing. As a gadget player, I love it. I'm very excited to see how the Amulet of Growth changes gameplay. Because make no mistake, it is going to change the way that people build decks. And I guess we'll see.